The global traveling restrictions continue to affect Tanzania's tourism industry. The UN Secretary calls for concerted effort in implementing the call to action on human rights. And Senegal have begun COVID-19 vaccination with the Chinese vaccine. These and more coming on the world today. Stay with us. Good evening, you're watching the World News Bulletin. I am Sohna Tunkara. Many thanks for joining us, and now to our news in detail. The Gambia Press Union on Thursday organized a workshop on the importance of accessing information during elections, improving transparency and accountability in electoral process in Africa. Access to information has been established as a fundamental right in regional and international law. Desise tells us more.
Access to official information may be restricted only if it is necessary. But in the Gambia, access to official documents has ever been a problem for journalists, activists, and citizens at large. However, the Gambia Press Union at a workshop brings together representatives from civil society and the media to share experiences on access to information in elections, as well as to make recommendations for free and fair elections. GPU has passed an Access to Information Bill to the Gambia National Assembly for adoption and ratification to make easy access to information. The Vice President of GPU, Mohammed Esba, highlights that parliamentarians should see this bill as a life-saving document.
Also before the Parliament, and I think the National Assembly should see, and all stakeholders should see the bill as a life-saving machine, which is important to all Gambians. The Gambia is one of the few West African English-speaking countries without an ATI law. The GPU and Civil Society Coalition on Access to Information has been at the forefront to get this law or legislative framework to be enacted.
Many are optimistic that parliamentarians will adopt and pass the Access to Information Bill. John Charles Njai, Civil Society Coalition on Access to Information, encourages journalists and civil society activists to mount pressure on the National Assembly to pass the bill.
And also, as I end, let me encourage you to please call your National Assembly members. The Access to Information Bill is before the National Assembly. Call them from this meeting, during your breaks. Call them, tell them in March, please, give access to information priority. I think we are very laid back as a people. And if all of us begin to call our National Assembly members and pile the pressure, I believe something will happen. And we will see the desires that we have begin to come to fruition.
Mohamed Sise, an activist, says access to information in elections is essential as Gambia will soon head to the polls. Mr. Sise hopes that the bill is passed by the parliamentarians.
Parliament not passed yet, but we are expecting that it is passed by our parliamentarians, that it doesn't suffer the same hiccup that the Constitution suffered, because the Access to Information Bill is something that is very special. It's supposed to be called our maiden bill because we have never had such in this country, and I will urge our parliamentarians to make sure that this bill is passed and then made available as a law so that access to information becomes something that is legally binding upon every Gambian and upon every citizen of the country.
Access to Information Bill was submitted to the National Assembly in December 2019. The bill is expected to go through the committee and subcommittee stages and be debated by parliamentarians before finally becoming a law. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Desise.
The Gambia's Press Union calls on the National Assembly to adopt the Access to Information Bill. And from the report by Desise, in their quest towards implementing the call to action on human rights, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called on all member states to shoulder a collective responsibility in enhancing its progress. In a briefing on Wednesday, Mr. Guterres said it would be unhealthy for the observation of human rights to be centralized to the privileged few, leaving out the rest. Here is more of that.
The world has been and continued to be slammed by a series of human rights violations, most especially in developing countries. In the context of remedying the widespread disregard for human rights, the call to human rights, which was launched last year, meant to avail a peaceful, democratized, and dignified life for all.
Much like COVID-19 vaccines, human rights will not lead to a healthier world if they are only available to the privileged few. We need renewed, concerted global determination to ensure the protection of human rights of all people, everywhere and in all situations.
The UN Secretary-General said the call to action was launched in a context of a wholesale assault on human rights around the globe, from glaring infringement to creeping transgressions.
En reconstruisant ensemble, nous avons une occasion unique et historique de bâtir un monde où la dignité de chaque personne est reconnue, où chaque société est capable de résister aux crises et où l'avenir de chaque personne repose sur un socle de droits inaliénables. L'appel à l'action en faveur des droits humains inscrit les problèmes les plus urgents et les plus fondamentaux de notre monde dans la perspective des droits. Et ces problèmes exigent que nous donnions collectivement le meilleur de nous-mêmes.
Political, economic, and social factors have predominantly staged rampant human rights violations in the globe, leading to insecurity and cracking crises in many countries. Guterres urged all member states to shoulder a collective responsibility, saying transformative change will make full commitment based on extended support.
And we must all join forces to deliver. Only by working together can we forge a new social contract that reflects respect and protection for all people and is rooted in universal human rights.
The call to action guides the way with a focus on 7 thematics, which are rights at the core of sustainable development, rights in times of crisis, gender equality and equal rights for women, public participation and civic space, among others. The UN chief also appealed to all member states to ensure that the Office of the High Commission of Human Rights, the treaty body mechanism, and other critical human rights activities have the necessary means to carry on this mandate and fulfill our shared promise to protect and advance human rights. For African News, I am Fatoumata Kassim.
From that report by Fatoumata Kassim, moving on, the COVID-19 pandemic is spreading rapidly within continents and requires urgent strategies. As a result, governments around the world are busy vaccinating their people to help contain further spread of the virus. And in Ghana, a country in West Africa, is the latest to receive the vaccine from WHO's COVAX initiative. The CC tells us more.
The 600,000 COVAX vaccine doses given to Ghana is part of the deliveries of the AstraZeneca vaccine, which represented part of the first wave of the pandemic. As the devastating virus continued to ravage the world, WHO and its partners are working tirelessly to develop and deploy safe and effective vaccines around the world. Since the beginning of February 2021, different vaccines, including the AstraZeneca vaccine, have been rolled out in countries with vulnerable populations. The first mass vaccination program of the pandemic started in early December 2020, and Ghana is the first West African country to receive the first shipment of the COVID-19 vaccine. The WHO representative to Ghana, Dr. Francis Kasolo, describes the arrival of COVID-19 vaccines as a momentous occasion. With the arrival of the vaccines, the path of recoveries for the people of Ghana can finally begin after more than 80,700 Ghanaians got infected with the virus and a little over 580 deaths. In this time of uncertainty, the COVAX facility plans to deliver close to 2 million doses of the vaccine this year alone. Meanwhile, according to a report by the WHO, 20% of the coronavirus fatality rates dropped globally last week, coinciding with a global decline in coronavirus cases and an increase in vaccinations. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Desise.
Countries continue to receive the COVID-19 vaccination, and Ghana is the first in West Africa to receive its shipment. Now moving on to the Gambia's Truth Commission. Usman Jallo, a former NIA officer, tells the Truth Commission that the government of Yahya Jammeh was aware of the presence of the West African migrants in the country. He was head of the team that picked the migrants from Bara and transported them to Banjul. He told the commission that the play behind Jammeh's investigation of whereabouts of the two Gambian American businessman Omar Ahmad Toure files in this report.
Yahya Jammeh's government denied knowledge of the presence of 50 West African migrants in the Gambia, even after news emerged that they were arrested and detained here before their summary execution by the junglers. Usman Jallo, the former NIA officer who led the team that received the migrants at Bara before they were transported to Banjul, says the government's denial is blatantly implausible.
That is far-fetched because I'm a living witness. And I dealt with this matter without an iota of doubt.
Among the 50 that you received, can you give us the gender distribution?
48 were men. There were 2 females. One was from Liberia. One was from Nigeria.
Sierra Leone. Jallo also testified on the 2 Gambian American businessmen, Mahmoud Sise and Ibu Job, who were killed by the junglers. He says the government investigated the whereabouts of these 2 to provide false information to the UN and ECOWAS investigators that came here in 2008.
It was on the news everywhere. These people have been killed. And for me, government wanted to clear their name that definitely these people were not killed.
And to Bissau. The government knew that they had captured and killed these people. True or false?
Very true, and that was very shocking.
And
it was very shocking.
In fact, your trip to Bissau was only intended to provide false information to the visiting trips that were coming to Gambia, visiting dignitaries.
Absolutely.
Gambia security forces arrested the 50 migrants bound for Europe after their boat landed in the Gambia on suspicion of involvement in a coup attempt and were later killed by the junglers. The search for justice for 16 years is coming to light as new revelations provide the opportunity to move forward. The Gambia government has, however, stated it is awaiting the recommendations of the Truth Commission before deciding on which Jammeh-era crimes to prosecute. For iAfrica TV, I am Omar Ahmad Toure.
More witnesses continue to appear to testify on the killings of the West African migrants. From that, we'll go with a short commercial break and the news continues when we are back. Stay tuned.
The pride we take in our brand, the work we put into constantly change the landscape and elevate real estate in the Gambia, it's compared to none. From inception, our goal was to add value to the beautiful Gambian landscape. That's why we are proud innovators of community estates. Kololi Sands is an exceptional piece of work, tailored for ultimate convenience and luxury, to bring you an element of finesse that is rare but unique in its own. This is also our pride and joy, and we welcome you to the exquisite beauty right here in Kololi and right here on the waterfront. Kololi Sands, feel the ocean breeze at your doorstep.
Welcome back. If you're just joining, this is the World News Bulletin, and to the rest of our stories. The global travel restrictions continues to affect Tanzania's tourism industry. The think tanker art center that welcomes thousands of tourists in Tanzania is facing setbacks due to the impact of the global pandemic. The Tanzanian government has plans of elevating the earnings of the tourism sector.
Tinga Tinga is a unique painting style created by the Tanzanian artist Edward Saidi Tinga Tinga 50 years ago. The famed dot motif style has inspired a generation of artists who depend on selling artwork to tourists as a means to feed their families. But global travel restrictions due to COVID-19 have cut their business by 90%. This market in 2019 was once visited by thousands of tourists each year, but now it is empty. Edin Denje, the chairman of the Tinga Tinga cooperative and an artist himself, says the government's desire to increase tourism earning gives them hope.
In that new target of 5 million visitors, we as Tinga Tinga Society can attract even 2 million tourists. We leave the 3 million to others. I'm sure we can do that because globally, Tinga Tinga art is getting known and is well received.
It's not just the Tinga Tinga Center that has been hit. The Tanzania Tourism Board says just 800,000 tourists visited last year, a 47% plunge from 2019. During his re-election campaign, Tanzanian President John Magufuli promised to more than double the 2019 visitor numbers.
In the next 5 years, we have plans to increase the number of tourists to 5 million by the year 2025.
But Tanzania's handling of the pandemic could deter tourists. The government has not released COVID-19 data since May, so there's no clear understanding of how widespread the virus has become, especially now as new, more transmissible variants take hold. There is also no clear vaccination strategy, but earlier this month, the health minister said the country has no plans in place to accept COVID-19 vaccines and encourage citizens to take precautions like washing hands, but also to use herbal blends to boost immunity. That plan could hinder liftoff in the sector, which accounts for 17% of Tanzania's GDP and employs about 4 million Tanzanians. Those in the industry are taking matters into their own hands. Jamila Kawawa, a travel agent, says her company has reduced their service charge and are working on offers to entice travelers. But she says government support is key.
If the government works hard to promote all these places, we will hit that target and possibly even exceed that number.
According to the Bank of Tanzania, Tanzania's tourism earnings dropped to $1 billion in 2020, something that Edie, Jamila, and other small tourism players can attest to. They hope the Minister of Tourism's regional tour can offer solutions to a challenge that affects their very livelihoods.
Senegal have begun COVID-19 vaccination with the Chinese vaccine. Health workers and community leaders were the first to receive the dose to encourage for greater participation. And authorities are expected to extend the vaccination to about 90% of the population. More of that in this report.
Senegal's Ministry of Health headquarters was the place to be as the country launched its vaccination campaign. The first targets of the inoculation exercise are frontline workers. Community leaders are leading in efforts to win the minds and souls of local communities.
I have come here today to support this exercise. I am doing this for the communities, to give them an assurance on the vaccines. I call upon all women, their leaders and heads of households to get vaccinated as soon as possible.
I am asking people to get vaccinated like myself, to protect themselves, their family and the entire Senegalese people. It is through unity that we will defeat this virus for normal life to resume.
Authorities are hoping to vaccinate about 90% of an expected 3.5 million people. Among the targeted people are health workers and high-risk persons between 19 and 60 years of age.
Today we started the vaccination campaign in Senegal. The head of state's vision is that we respect the two principles, fairness and transparency. It is the principle of equity that has allowed us to be present today in all 14 regions of Senegal. That is why a National Commission for Monitoring and Control of Vaccination has been set up here at the Ministry of Health. But at the grassroots, the governors will have to take every step to achieve the principle of transparency.
Senegal will also donate 10,000 doses of its Sinopharm vaccines to the neighboring Guinea-Bissau and 10,000 doses to Gambia. The Health Ministry also says a further 1.3 million doses are expected to arrive by early March. The country is also in talks with Russia, which could see its Sputnik 5 vaccine procured at a cost of over $3.7 million.
Senegal have begun with its vaccination process. With that brings the World Today newscast to an end. I am Sohna Tunkara. Thanks for watching and bye for now.
Gambia may be the smallest country in Africa, but